Morning, everyone, on our last class of the second spring semester. We have a few things to do today to finish up this quarter. Semesters we do quarters. So we'll do some work on our technology chart, which we will use in the next quarter. And then we're going to look at a new short story and talk about inference. I need to put that in. Oh, I was sure that how to infer. Infer is the verb. Inference is the noun, and it's a skill you'll use on the GED, and you'll see it there. It'll say, what can you infer? So we'll start out. I know you in Paige started reading the short story. We'll go back to that in a few minutes. Let me share now our some writing that we can look to get together today and do a little editing. Let me see if I can add that up. Let me go. Here it is. Try to get that on the screen. Okay, this was back when we had the reading from our 10 steps on parenting styles. And if you recall, there was 3 parenting styles. Permissive, which seemed to lead to not kids being too independent. They were a little more lost in a way when they were young, very young, like preschool. Authoritarian, which was the sort of ironclad, you must do this or else type of parenting. Do what I say, not what I do. And then there was the authoritative, which means that the parent had a lot of authority, but was also tuning into the kid and talking to the child, giving them positive feedback, encouraging them, but also kind of demanding that they be responsible, that they come through with things they said they were going to do. And if they don't do what the parent thinks they should do, they do get punished. But there's a lot of discussion with the child, and a lot of, that's a very interactive style. So this is one of the essays on that. So let's look at this. We'll look at both the content and the style, which is the grammar and the usage of the words, and see if it all flows nicely. And we thank you for sharing this, our writer, our author. All right, let's jump in. So parenting style growing up. That looks like a title. And let me just remind you that titles are sort of the names of the essay. So we capital, just like Marianne Capehart is my name. You wouldn't want to put a small c. It would be like, not what you do, it's disrespectful. But in a title, we want to capitalize every word. So that's one way we know it's a title. Cool. It's a good title. It's telling us what this is about. Can you guys see this? Did I share? I did not share. There we go. Here it is. Parenting style growing up. So here's the title, Parenting Style Growing Up. I just made it all, each word starts with a capital letter. And I like to put these in, center these. It's the title, cool. All right. Growing up in my home wasn't the greatest. Opener sentence. We don't want to hear this, but if that's what happened, that's what happened. growing up on my own wasn't the greatest. My parents. I think this has probably got. They divorced while I was 2, or maybe we want to change that to what? Maybe sound a little bit better. Patty? What would be a better word than while? Speak up. Any ideas? Got a divorce while I was 2. What would be a more common way of saying that?
When?
I think when. Thank you. When I was 2. I didn't have both parents, had a single mother for a parent. So that's the way we talk, and that's cool. But for the formal writing we do at school and stuff, we always have to have a subject, unless it's a command, sit down. That sounds authoritarian. So we'll put the I in there. I had a single mother for a parent. I would say, stay with my grandmother majority of the time. What can we do to make that a little smoother? I would stay with my grandmother majority of the time. Make that smoother. It's like a word missing. I would stay with my grandmother majority of the time. Anything come to mind? Okay, I'm gonna do it then. I would stay with my grandmother the majority of the time. I would stay with my grandmother the majority of the time, with my mom being the only parent with 2 girls. Now, that is what we call a fragment. It's not a complete sentence. Why? Also, complete sentences down here for you guys. I know we've talked about it, but let me write it out here. There's 3 things that they have. I'll need a subject and a verb, unless it's a command. The player and the action, right? Or the player and what's being described. Starts with a capital letter. Oops. And how does it end? Punctuation, we call it end punctuation, but it would most usually be a period. What are the other 2 ways?
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point, if it's like you're excited. Spell right. And what's the 3rd way? Question mark, thank you. And it has to sound, it has to stand on its own. It can't be part of something. It has to sound complete. That's why we call it complete sentences. So if I came in the room and I said, my parent, on the other hand, you'd probably be like, your parent, on the other hand, what? You know what I mean? It doesn't stand on its own. So you know that it has to either join with something else, or we have to put a subject in there, right? Well, we have a subject actually, but my parent, but we don't have a verb. So my other parent, on the other hand, let's connect it with the verb. Easy peasy, we'll change that to a comma and just be left. So she capitalized that. That's not traditional, just capitalize any old word. But I'm pretty sure the author thought that this was a good word to make a lot of attention to. The other thing you can do is capitalizes aren't that normal. This is another way to emphasize a word. You put italics. Okay. Now let's italicize that exclamation point. My other parent, on the other hand, left. So there wasn't any parenting style growing up. But we don't really need this comma because we don't go, but what I really remember, you want to go, what I really remembered. But what I can't remember, let's add a verb in there. Is my grandmother being an authoritarian. What's wrong with that? It's followed by a vowel. What do we do? Have authoritarian, but the a authoritarian should be an. Yeah, an authoritarian. Okay. This is great. Love it. I feel as if she was like that because she would be drinking while she'd be watching us. So we have would be drinking, but we have be watching us. So let's make it the same. What should I do here to make it the same? Say, right? So we don't want to say would be drinking while she be watching. Oh, what should I do?
Was watching us.
I understand now that I'm older. Don't really know what she's talking about per se. It's not, we need a little bit more information. Maybe she answers it here. Why would you, or he, why would you want to take care of your daughter's daughter? Okay, that's cool. The question gets answered. And that's a nice rhetorical question. It's not meant to be answered. It's just meant to be a question to make people think. Why would you want to take care of your daughter's daughter? Now, isn't there a possessive in there? Some ownership like Mary Ann's coat. How do we show ownership and possession? My mother's drink. My mother's umbrella. How do we show that? Theo, how do we show that? Can you put it in the chat? How do we show possession when someone owns something?
Mine.
Well, we have is good, but also when it's like a noun, like your daughter's daughter. Don't we need something in there? Because daughters sound like more than once. Your daughter's daughter. That's not what you meant. Yeah.
What's it called?
Apostrophe.
Apostrophe.
Kind of a big word for a tiny little mark. Good. You don't need the comma. That down here. Apostrophe. The computer thinks it's smarter than me. It keeps wanting to suggest things. Shows. P-O-S-S-E-S-I-O-N. E.g. that means for example. Okay. Excellent. When would rather be at downtown at your favorite bar? Okay, there's a subject missing. Well, for one, if I came in again, we're talking about complete thoughts, right? If I came in here and I said, would rather be at downtown at your favorite bar, you'd be like, who? Like what? So each sentence has to stand on its own and be complete. So what's missing? You have the verb be, but we don't have, what do we don't have? I or you, the subject. So she's talking about a grandma, so let's put you. When you would rather be downtown. But that's not a complete thought. So what do we do when we have an incomplete thought like that? We have to join it to another sentence. Or we can just make it independent, but let's just do joining it. And then we'll do like this. So I just want to remind you guys that when you write, you throw stuff out, you just type. and get it all on the page, and then you clean it up, which is exactly, I'm sure she might have cleaned, or he might have cleaned this up already, because it's pretty polished, but it takes a couple of times to get it just right. And you'll find other things later if you read it, but not very many. Why would you want to take care of your daughters? Are there two daughters? Not sure. Let's just do the one daughter. Oh, two girls, the only parent with two girls. Of your daughter's daughter when you'd rather be downtown at your favorite bar. So we don't need the ad. I don't think I had a role model or someone who guided me. I mean, yes, my mother was around. I love this. It's very conversational. It's like she's talking to us, right? It's really cool. I mean, yes, my mother was around. Okay, here's another what we call fragment, because if I came in the room and said, but she wasn't there, you'd be like, wait, who? What? So what am I going to do? Last time when we had a fragment. A fragment.
New sentence?
We could make it a complete sentence, or we could join it to the one before.
Yeah, that's what
Okay, let's join it to the one before. I mean, yes, my mother was around. Wouldn't it be just good to say, I mean, yes, my mother was around, but she wasn't there. Well, comma there in front of the but. She wasn't there. And I know what that means. Maybe we put this in italics. But she wasn't there. She was there, not really there. After my mom and dad split up, again, that ends with a period, but is that a complete thought? If I came in the room after my, be like, wait, so what am I going to do? I might not join it to the sentence before, I might join it to which sentence?
after.
Yeah. After my mother and dad that split up, I think she was only showing the tip of the iceberg of what life was really going to be about. Okay. People like to capitalize words that are important to them, but you don't really do that unless it's a name. Okay, I think she was only showing the tip of the iceberg of what life was going to be like. I'm not sure what that means. Let's see if we get the understanding as we proceed. She slowly started to become an alcoholic and started to see less of her and more of an authoritarian, like we did before, grandmother parenting style. So I definitely feel like I need some childhood trauma healing, which I'm working on. Excellent ending, and I'm so glad to hear that. Because a lot of us have had childhood trauma. Many people. Yeah. Good job. So let's fix this little part here. She slowly started to become an alcoholic and started to see. Did she started to see less and less of her? Is there something missing there?
Here and there.
What? I don't think that means that her mother started to see less and less of her.
She started seeing.
Yeah, let's add the subject in there. No, she started to see who's she. Wait, no, she's not starting to see less and less of herself. So she's the one who's showing the tip of the iceberg. So who started to see less and less of her? Yeah, it could be yeah. But since there was two sisters, we can also put we, and that would include the grandmother. So only showing the tip of the iceberg. I see in terms of her reaction to the divorce, I think what that means. At first, she only showed a little bit of what was going to go down, and then it got like more and more real about her not being present for the family. She slowly started with an alcoholic, and we started to see less of her and more of an authority. Okay. So I definitely feel like, definitely. So I feel like I definitely need, definitely need childhood trauma healing, which I know. Very good job. I will save this and then send it to the author. Email. So I have one of yours, Tashinia. Did you want me to share that?
Sorry.
It's on my desk. I'll bring it in.
Okay.
And in the break. Okay, great job, writer. So let's, and I'd like to hear from people. Mikhail, I haven't heard from you for a long time. And Sam as well. Please speak up if you can. Or chat. Everybody can chat, right? They'll have chat capabilities, I'm thinking. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our chart that we made from the Gilded Ages. So what I'm saying, Gilded Ages, we had a Gilded Age. And we're coming into kind of another Gilded Age. Log in link. I don't know what that means. Log in link. Oh, to attendance. Let me get that for you.
I can get it, Marianne.
Okay, thanks. So we talked about the Gilded Age. Now, I want you guys, when you come back for the next part of our semester, well, actually summer semester, the beginning, part one, we're gonna have a different schedule. And you guys will all hear about that in your mind and stuff, but it's like 4 mornings a week for 2.5 hours, for 1.5 hours shorter. Starts at the same time. And we're gonna have 2 days of special lessons. Each week's gonna be devoted to one of the topics on the GED. So we'll have a science week, social studies week, a math week, and a reading week. And so 2 days will be these special lessons. And then the other 2 days will be testing on the GED Ready test site. We'll give you the codes. And then we're going to look at the test results and see where you guys need to go from here. So it'll give you a chance to get some practice with GED and also kind of see what you need to work on. So that's going to be really cool. So there's either you come all 4 mornings, hopefully, or all 4 evening sessions to get the most out of it. Or, if you have work conflicts, you can come to 2 or 3. But, the more consistent, the better, as you can tell, right? Because it's not great to come to class and be like, I wonder what happened last class. It's not the best feeling in the world. Become a little lost. But, I know life happens and that's what happens, but do your best to set that side apart if you can from work and family responsibilities. So anyway, we looked at this because we're going to talk a little bit about timelines and what they call sequencing, putting things in order. So I thought, hey, this class can make a chart for that lesson I'm going to teach, and Julie will teach, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to use this actually our next session, our summer session. So let's go back to this article. We'll add a few more lines to our chart. So right now we have human muscle replaced by steam and electricity, and then the dates. Wood replaced by iron, and iron replaced by steel. Steel's much harder. What is after steel here? This is a little hard to read. Let me open it up a bit. Here, how about oil? Lubricate machines, lights, homes, streets, and factories. Who's before they had oil lamps. How did they see at night? Sheena, how do people see at night? An old fashioned oil lamp, if you have one of those with the wick and you light it.
Lantern?
What?
A lantern?
Powered by what? What was the energy source?
Fire.
Fire in a lantern?
Candlelight,
What?
candlelight,
Candlelight. Candlelight. Some kind of energy, right? So that was paraffin, which is kind of like a waxy substance. Sometimes people make them out of beeswax, really nice, expensive. Sometimes they burn whale oil, like you were saying, Cheryl, like in a lantern or a lamp. But now this was replaced by, what did they say? Oil could lubricate machines and light homes, streets, and factories. Oil lamps. It also lubricated things. Let's look real quick. Oh, this was later. Gas came in later. The street lights. Before electricity, still not. Where's those cute little guys that light them? Like a little, it was like a job that kids had. Yeah, like this. You had to like light these street lamps. Because they were gas and they had to be lit. I don't, there's little boys, remember like chimney sweeps were like done by boys a lot because they could climb up really fast. Here's a boy lighting one. Was that a man? That's a shorter man. Anyway. Candlelight replaced, by oil lamps. The newer technology is the oil lamps. Let's look again and see if we can get another thing going on here. Railroads. What did railroads replace? What did they use before they didn't, there was no railroads?
Horses.
Yeah, horses and wagons. So I think these are all the same dates. That's what this little mark means, right? Ditto is actually what it means.
Marianne, weren't horses and wagons replaced by railroads?
Oh, yeah, was replaced by, thank you. Sure, do you think it might be more easy to have it the other way around? Such and such replace such and such. What do you think, guys? Do you think it'd be easier to say steam and electricity replace human muscle? Yeah, let's do that. So we'll take this thingy, come on, thingy. Should be able to move this column, right, Rob? Those of you in computer class. Yeah. This column thing. gonna take a second. This is not the most efficient way to do it. We'll do what we can. Does this make sense, Mary, to make it this way?
I mean, I think either one will work.
Try it this way. I think it might be more intuitive. And they don't use a passive verb. You see the column heading says older and newer, so you know which was which. Let's do section. How do we get rid of this column? Delete column. Okay, so let's do a few more. Oh, we got these guys, typewriter, telephone typewriter, adding machine. So this, because the start of the paragraph said the Civil War in 1900, all that stuff happened then. So we'll just finish this page. Telephone typewriter and adding machine. Look at all this stuff they invented right around then. You know what I mean? Everybody was writing by hand, right? They were adding, I don't know how they were adding. Sometimes there's a beads, you know, the abacus you could use to add. What were they using? I don't know how they were adding in their heads or marks on the paper. So what did it say? Telephones. Did it say telephones, telegraphs, and what? Adding machines. I can't, my short-term memory is shot. Telegraphs. Telegraph. Telephones, telegraphs. Yeah, telegraphs were huge. I mean, before, how would you get a message to someone? If you wanted to tell someone we're like a week late, how would you do that without a telephone or a telegraph? When you get a telegram, how would you do that? What? Smoke signals, that's right.
Carrier pigeon?
Carrier pigeon. Sometimes they had the Pony Express. Someone ride a pony really, really, really fast with a note.
Someone in page says letters.
And letters sent by ponies or whatever carriages came through. What are they called? When they went from town to town, what's the name of that big, you know, the big carriages with the horses and I can't think. Yeah. Typewriter, telephone typewriter. Oh, telephone typewriter. Typewriter, big one. Love typewriters. Wish I still had mine. What was it? What was it? People went from place to place on. Yeah, but they were like, they're almost like buses, but they were. Got the steam engine down here. There's a horse bus. Drawn bus. That's a lot less poop on the street. That stopped a lot less. It's funny, I read something about that. But I'm still not finding like it. Ooh, there's a fancy Cinderella type carriage. I can't, it's just right on the tip of my tongue. Stagecoach. Thank you. So these replaced. Try to get this right. Railroads were huge.
There was trains too,
Now, yeah,
right?
later,
Not yet. Oh.
but yeah, just now, yeah, during this period, we developed the train. Smoke signals were a real thing, right? Great, and now let's just look back at our reading again and talk about farming. Changes, technological changes, which we have now. That's why we're looking at this. We're going to compare it to what we have now. Huge, huge technological changes, just in a very different way, because most of them are virtual. So it's a very different feeling. There's not all these things that are being manufactured and crafted and, you know, people in factories building things. It's all virtual online changes where we're having artificial intelligence really burgeoning right now. I mean, like crazy, like right now. The screenwriters are striking in Los Angeles because the machines have started these programs. I won't just say machines, that sounds too scary, but like programs are helping them write the scripts and telling them, this many people dropped off of your episode last week. Don't do that in your script. Do this, and you'll keep more people watching, because Netflix, for instance, is a giant data company, really. They have all this data of who's watching what, when, and why, where. And they're bossing the writers around, and they're the creatives, and they don't like it. Because the machines don't understand people or stories as well as they do, but they're just sort of being told by them based on Netflix in particular, wanting people to stay on the show. It's kind of intense. Anyway, so there's just this huge thing. You know, I told you about the waiter down at the Golden Corral, Tucson, not the waiter, but the busboy, robot busboy. Comes in, I'll take your dishes, please. And then you put it in the stomach of the robot and it takes it in the kitchen. So that's a job that a machine got, you know, replaced a person. I don't know that that's true, but someone did tell me that. And I don't think they were making it up, but I haven't had firsthand experience. So I would like to go in there.
They
and
have
make sure
that in AU.
they have robots.
Yeah, the little white guys. Little white things. And then
Little
they
robots.
go around campus and give people their food and everything.
Really? They have robots going around delivering lunch?
Yeah.
Do they have names? Cute boy, little white cute heads. What do people call them?
Just robots, I think.
Robots, lunch robots. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
See?
those things are so cool.
right?
Yeah.
Do they trip
Um,
and
they take
fall
a
over?
while across the street.
I can see those.
Yeah.
Machines change farming and manufacturing changed the transport of food. They don't say specifically. See, if I just tab, I get a new row. See, transport of food. I think it's with refrigeration. Can be with refrigeration. Let's look. A little bit too soon for that. Ice, manufactured ice. And before. Of course, there's a movement back to raising your own food. Even in cities. And what was the other one? See, this short-term memory. Boy, let me look. That was meat packing. And then wheat. So we didn't really, they don't get into that, but I think what they're talking about is the combine. Hand harvesting, I mean, they probably had plows that they pushed by hand, I know on my grandfather's farm. Not that long ago, like he was alive, he was born in 1898. They had mules pulling the plow to plow up the earth before they put the seeds in. That was before cars. We haven't even mentioned car yet, because car comes later in the early part of the 19th century. We're still back in 1800s right now. Yeah, they have mules pulling stuff around, and it's not a bad way to go, but it was slower. So these things are just, you turn on the steam harvester and goes down the field and like chops everything down and puts it and spits it into the wagon, and you take it back. And I'm just gonna put, what do I put? Horses, mules, or I don't know. What is it called? Something animals. I'll just put animals. There's a better word for that when you're using animals for work like that. All right. So that's a really good start on our chart. And before we move on to our next activity, we're going to look at something that you'll see also next, the week after next, because we're off next week.
We're off next week?
Yes. Off next week. Looking here for a second, if I can find it. I don't take too much time with it. So here is a giant timeline from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, we're not going to go back that far next week after next. We are going to just go from the Gilded Age, which was between the Civil War and 1900. And we'll also talk about very important dates that you guys need to memorize for sure. Like you have to have certain dates in your head, 4 or 5. Not very many, like the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the wars, unfortunately, but World War II and 9/11. If you can choose your dates, but you need to have some, and when the Pilgrims arrived in 1620, you need, I think I've said this before, but you need to have some dates memorized. So when you see a date, you have some idea of what was happening around it. And that helps you with like history and understanding the past. So this one's crazy. So it goes, you guys see this? It goes the first tools, even before the beginning of our species, Homo sapien. Hammers and anvils, they made tools. This guy, or person, I shouldn't say guy. Not even a whole, it's evolving. But this primate, it's called, which we are too, we're primates. I don't know, they're defined by the brain and other things, and they stand up on 2 feet, not on 4, and they don't climb trees. Where they used to with their hands, their arms. Anyway, use tools, pretty cool. So, where's that thing? And then fire. Yeah, so everything was eaten raw before that, right? You get fruit, you eat it raw, you get something, cook some grass, maybe eat the seeds, so forth, nuts. And then agriculture and the wheel. Oh my God, how handy was the wheel? Is the wheel. But we're not going to go this far back. It's just fun to look at. Irrigating makes, well, you can grow a lot more food. Sailing. 4,000 before the Common Era, which used to be before the birth of Christ, which is the beginning of our calendar, 0. So this is 4,000 years before Jesus. iron, gunpowder, the windmill, compass, clock, printing, steam engine. Here we are, getting pretty close to our era after the Civil War. Railways, 1804, with steam. So the steam created pressure and it turned the axis of the train. And the wheels turn. That's Marianne's explanation of how a steam engine works. Steamboat. Photography. So now we're getting into the same air. Reaper. Mechanical reaper. Let's do that instead of calling it a combine, because combine might have been a little bit more modern term. Reaper. And cool. So what are our dates on our chart? So far, we have between 1865 and 1900. That was according to what we read in our Howard Zinn book. We're not 1865. So this is all. The telegraph came a little bit before, so the dates you might want to trim up the dates. Telephone 1876. So that's between 1865 and 1900. Internal combustion engine. That doesn't say they were produced yet, but it was invented. That's burning fuel. Electric light. That's between 1865 and 1900. Here comes the automobile. Don't think it was, yeah, I guess it did get produced enough for people to buy it. Soon after that, radio. So that's our different era right there. And then we just go radio, airplane, rocketry, television, computer, pretty early, 1937. They didn't produce them for people till much later. Nuclear power, right, during the World War II, transistor radio, space flight, personal computer, way up in the 70s, internet, CRISPR, that's about gene splicing to change genes. Has a lot to do with genetically modified food and cloning, which is not legal for people or animals, only for food. And then now we're up here to artificial intelligence, which we were talking about earlier. Okay. All right, so that's our chart. I think we're doing a good job on that. So this all sped things up also too, right? It sped things up a lot of what that was about was speeding things up and making a bigger volume. When there's more food too, you get a bigger population. Believe it that there's not enough food, the population doesn't grow as quickly. Availability of food created bigger families because you're like, okay, let's. Sometimes it depended on how people were planning their families, but people lived longer when they were healthier and had better food and had more babies. All right, so that's that. And okay, so we'll take a break now and then we'll come back and look at the Book of Martha. We'll see you at 5 after 11.
I would just. The pages to show.
So years. I began. Okay. So. Is this the period that there's no capital? Yeah, so what do we do? Do we just join to one before? Join to the next one. Over the years, I began to not listen to them. Even when I got on probation, that would. Join to one before. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. Okay. Which one was it? This was it. Oh, okay. Before the team. So this needs to be. Fine, like just give us one more thing. That way I wouldn't have rebelled, or that way. I might have overreacted, you know what I mean? That'd be great. All right, we're back. So we're going to look at a story. I'm going to throw this at you guys. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'm not going to tell you when it was written. You can see who wrote it. You maybe don't know that name yet. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. And it's long, but we're going to read some of it today. And then you guys, I'm hoping we'll finish it next week on your own time. Yes? Good. The more you read, the better. A cool thing to do next week would be go to the library. If you don't have a card, get one. It's right down the street from here, or maybe the closest one to you, if that's possible. Or go to Goodwill or go to secondhand store and get a book and read it, read it, read it, read it. Read, 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 read. Didn't I start out saying I wanted you guys to be reading machines? I did. It just makes it easier, more fun. You got to read good stuff. Can't read boring stuff. But each person might be interested by different stuff. If you want a recommendation, let me know. You can also ask Kiana. She, if you know her, is an avid reader. She's read a lot. She has good ideas, or anyone in the class might be able to, recommend a good book too. I highly recommend it. I know you guys are busy, but it would be really a good use of your time before bed, perhaps. Last thing you do makes your make your dreams good. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is called the Book of Martha. You're already like, that kind of sounds familiar. The book of. I'm going to go in here. And there's the Book of Martha, and then we're going to start reading. But does the Book of Martha remind you of anything? I don't know if we have any churchgoers here. Does that remind you of anything? Book of Martha. How about the Bible? Like the book,
Of Isaac or something?
yeah, the different books of the Bible. So already, just from the title, you get information real quick, so you can start putting that information in your head. Here are the books of the Bible. So like the book of Genesis, all the books of the Bible. So maybe the story has something to do with that. So let's get back to our story. So what we're going to do is I want one person to read God, and I want one person to read Martha, and I'll start reading the narrator. Which is all the other stuff that's talking about what's happening in the moment in the story, right? So I need 2 volunteers. And eventually I'll ask someone else to read the narrator. Who would like to read God? And hopefully we can hear you. And remember, this is fiction. Okay, so this is not someone actually giving a sermon or anything in church. This is not, it's serious, but it's not like gospel. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so Tashina's going to read God.
Wait, right here? Wait, where?
Whenever you see the quotation marks, that's God talking. And when
Oh,
it stops the quotation marks, I talk, because I'm the narrator telling the story.
okay.
Who's going to play Martha? Cheryl?
Okay.
Thanks. And I'm going to be the narrator. So it'll take us a while to get the routine going, but we'll get it. So I'll read, since I'm the narrator, I'll read the title, The Book of Martha by Octavia Butler.
It's difficult, isn't it?
God said with a weary smile.
You're truly free for the first time. What could be more difficult than that?
Martha Best looked around at the endless grayness that was, along with God, all that she could see. In fear and confusion, she covered her broad black face with her hands. No, that's not you. That's Mark. That's
If
Cheryl.
only I could wake up.
She whispered. Good. Now God's not talking yet, so I'm going to keep going. If only I could wake up, she whispered. God kept silent and was so palpably, disturbingly present. Palpably means you practically touch it. That even in the silence, Martha felt rebuked.
She asked,
Wait, what?
Where?
Oh, where?
where is this?
Okay, good. She asked, not really wanting to know, not wanting to be dead when she was only 43.
Where am I?
Here with me.
God said.
Really? Here?
She asked.
Not at home in bed, dreaming, not locked up in a mental institution. I'm sorry. Institution, not lying here, not lying dead in a morgue. Here
That's God.
with me.
Sit here.
God said softly.
Oh, I have to say that too?
No, I say that.
Oh, okay.
Start it here. You do here again.
Oh, yeah, here.
God said softly. After a moment, Martha was able to take her hands from her face and look again at the grayness around her and at God.
This can't
No, that's Martha.
This can't be heaven, she said.
I say that part. You just use the quotation marks. Yeah.
There's
Okay.
nothing here, no one here but you. Is that
God asked.
is that all you see?
We'll get it. We'll get it. Is that all you see? Said God asked that. Then it's my turn. I'm sorry. This confused her even more. So that's her.
Don't you know what I see? She demanded.
So I'm the narrator. You just read what you say. She demanded, and then quickly softened her voice.
Don't you know everything?
God smiled.
No, I outgrew that trick long ago. You can't imagine how boring it was.
This struck Martha as such a human thing to say that her fear diminished a little, although she was still impossibly confused. She remembered, been sitting at her computer, wrapping up one more day's work on her 5th novel. The writing had been going well for a change, and she'd been enjoying it. For hours, she'd been spilling her story onto paper in that sweet frenzy of creation that she lived for. Finally, she stopped, turned off the computer, and realized that she felt stiff. Her back hurt. She was hungry and thirsty. It was almost 5 a.m. She had worked through the night. Amused in spite of her various aches and pains, she got up and went to the kitchen to find something to eat. And there she was, confused and scared. Oh, I'm sorry. And then she was here, confused and scared. The comfort of her small, disorderly house was gone, and she was standing before this amazing figure who had convinced her at once that he was God, or someone so powerful, he might as well be God. He had work for her to do, he said, work that would mean a great deal to her and the rest of humankind. Right, we'll stop there for a second. Now, does anyone have any words they didn't know anyone to ask me?
No.
Finished means go, makes less of. Anything else that came up? Palpably means you can practically touch it. Any other words? street frenzy. Frenzy is like when you're going crazy. Frenzy. Right?
Yeah.
Disorderly, that means messy. Okay, let me go into this quick. So from the Book of Martha, what can we infer from the title? We determine that the story, you don't know, you've got a theory. But biblical. That means having to do with. And where is Martha? What can where can we can infer. Infer means like take a guess or draw a conclusion. You know, you look at all the evidence in the story and you say, I can confer, there's evidence, and I can say, where's Martha in the story? Martha. Where is Martha? Let's think about this. Who's she talking to?
God.
Yeah, it looks all foggy.
Heaven.
I think so. Martha is in heaven. We'll capitalize it. So those are two things that we can infer from what we've read so far. All right, let's go back and we'll read another page together. Okay, so I'll keep reading because I'm the narrator. If she had been a little less frightened, she might have laughed. Beyond comic books and bad movies, who said stuff like that? So he said he had work for her to do, work that would mean a great deal to her and to the rest of the humankind. Like that's a big thing, like it's like Superman scale, or I don't know, I don't watch his movies, but you guys know. That's a grand mission, right? It's a huge, huge goal. So I didn't let God say that because it wasn't quoted. That was just referred to that he said that, but it wasn't him actually talking. There's no quotation marks, correct? Is that right, Tashina? He wasn't talking because she was just reflected what he said. Okay. Next we have Cheryl.
What do I read? Do you want me to read off?
Yeah, keep reading your part, Martha.
Um,
We're at
Okay.
one.
why? Why?
Right, yeah. She dared to ask.
Do you look like a twice life-size bearded white man? In
When you ask a question, you should go up like, man, like, why do you look like a twice life size bearded white man? Okay.
okay.
In fact, he was seated as he was in a huge throne-like chair. He looked, she thought, like a living version of Michelangelo's Moses, the sculpture that she remembers seeing pictured in her art history textbook about 20 years before. You know, I'm crazy for looking stuff up because it's fun. So there's Michelangelo's Moses. Gosh, like a god type, right? Okay. Except that God was more fully dressed than Michelangelo's Moses, wearing from neck to ankles a kind of long white robe that she had so often seen in the paintings of Christ.
You see what your life has prepared you to see?
It said. And then
I want to see what's
sorry, go ahead.
I want to see what's really here. Do you?
If it switches paragraphs like this, lines, then it's you, Tashina.
Do you, what you see is up to you, Martha, everything is up to you.
She sighed,
Do you mind if I sit down?
and she was sitting. She did not sit down, but simply found herself sitting in a comfortable armchair that surely had not been there a moment before. Another trick, she thought resentfully, like the grayness, like the giant on his throne, like her own sudden appearance here. Everything was just one more effort to amaze and frighten her. And of course, it was working. She was amazed and badly frightened. Worse, she liked the giant for manipulating her. And this frightened her even more. Surely he could read her mind. Surely he would punish. She made herself speak through her fear. Do you, Martha, see the quotation?
I forgot where I kind of lost us.
Are you looking at your own copy?
Yeah, I am.
Are you on Zoom? You are, so you can just look at, did I share the screen? Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Would,
You said you had worked for me.
she paused, lipped her lips, tried to steady her voice.
What do you want to do? What do you want me to do?
He didn't answer at once. He looked at her with what she read as amusement. Looked at her long enough to make her even more uncomfortable.
What do you want me to do?
She repeated, her voice stronger this time. Todd's having a little snack over there. I have a great deal of
Okay.
work,
I have a great deal of work for you.
he said at last.
When I tell you about it, I want you to keep 3 people in mind, Jonah, Job, and Noah. Remember them. Be guided by their stories.
All right.
She said because he had stopped speaking, and it seemed that she should say something.
All right.
When she was a girl, she had gone to church and to Sunday school, to Bible class, and to vacation Bible school. Her mother, only a girl herself, hadn't known much about being a mother, but she wanted her child to be, in quotes, good, and to her, in quotes, good, meant, in quotes, religious. As a result, Martha knew very well what the Bible said about Jonah, Job, and Noah. She had come to regard their stories more as parables rather than literal truths, but she remembered them. So parables are stories, right? God had ordered Jonah to go to the city of Nineveh. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. And to tell the people, what, Nineveh?
I think you did.
Okay. Nineveh, and to tell the people there to mend their ways. Frightened, Jonah had run away from the work and from God. Oh yeah, he was the one that ended up in the whale, but God caused him to be shipwrecked, swallowed by a great fish, and given to know that he could not escape. You guys know these stories?
No.
Jonah and the whale. That's a painting. There's another one. They spit out of the big fish. I guess there's a Disney one, maybe. Jonah and the whale. Oh, that's a book for kids. Okay, so let's go back to our questions briefly. One more. So what's Martha's profession? How do you pick that up? You guys got to be like detectives, want to take every clue you get. What's her profession? What was her profession, I should say? She's dead now.
Hmm, she was an author. Says that she was writing a novel or her fifth novel.
Yeah. So that means she probably wrote a lot of an author. We call her a writer and author. Good. Now we don't infer because they tell us right directly. So that's not inferring. Inferring is you kind of have to put the pieces together. They don't say she was an author. They just say she was finishing her fifth book. So you can infer that she was an author. That's what inferring is like. You're kind of guessing and making a guess based on what you're reading, evidence. How old is she? How old?
She was 43.
43 years old. And I guess, let's say, I think we can use inferred here. We can infer. I hate ethnic groups and all that stuff, but she does mention it. What's her ethnic group? I mean, you can kind of tell by description of her. You catch that? No? That's because you're too busy being God. With bigger things on your mind. Anyone catch that?
No.
No? Gotta be detectives when you read. So up here and skim, it's our favorite thing to do. Trying to answer questions. We've got this endless grayness. Here, how about the second paragraph? Yep. Okay. Good. So I'm gonna let you guys finish reading the story as far as you get. And I want to know how you like it. We'll meet here at 5 till, so you have 25 minutes to finish it if you can, or get as far as you'll fall asleep. Okay, question,
I kind of need help getting on that.
okay. We've got, you guys and Paige have your own copy. All right, so we started, I'll be right over. We're at the part where she's talking about Jonah and the whale or the fish. And then next is Job. All these bad things happen to Job. It's crazy. Like everything bad happens to him. So, yeah, go in. Go in. Oh, go ahead. Okay, now you can go down. There it is. Yeah, it's in a class. Oh, it's all the stuff you done is in here. Okay, you have not read all that stuff. You guys. It's all good. Okay. Okay, I chose. The fun stuff. You don't have to read all of it.
in.
Right.
I've been getting messages from Lauren saying he's been trying to join Zoom all the time and he can't get on. Has he been in the waiting room or?
I just let him in, but I
Oh,
hadn't
okay.
seen him before that. Mary,
Okay.
Mary usually lets people in,
Oh, okay, cool.
but
Yeah,
she
he
was gone right after 11, so we might have missed.
Okay, well, I'm glad he snuck
20
in a little
minutes.
bit there. No worries. Cool.
Okay, if I use the restroom.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
can you send me the sign-in link on the job in
The
the
sign in?
chat? Yes,
Sure,
ma'am. Thank you.
Sure.